Hi. You guys want to hear me talk about vampires for the first time? The 1732 vampirization plague was an epidemic that started in Serbia, in which it's believed that people were killed by, you guessed it, vampiros. Now, during this time, land had switched back and forth between the Habsburg and the Ottoman empires since they ruled next to each other. However, within the Ottoman Empire, there lied this belief that an undead corpse would haunt the living. I'm fucking haunted by the thought of her every day. People believe that this undead corpse had the ability to wipe out villages. There are about 3 stories that relate heavily to this time frame and can be associated together by a few reports that mention them together. I wanna be a man, but I love all the sin and the cigarette, ash black lips, in what may be modern-day Kisiljevo, Serbia, a man named Petar Blagojevic had died in 1725, and over the course of 8 days, 9 people died after claiming Blagojevic had strangled them, 10 weeks after his own death. Blagojevic's death was said to have been by unknown causes, which wasn't rare at the time, but those who claimed to be his victims, they came down with a mysterious illness 24 hours just before dying. Blagojevic's widow had come forward after this incident, stating that her husband visited her in the night and asked for his shoes. She would later move away from the village for her safety. And in some accounts, it said that he came back to strangle his wife. And some others say that he asked his son for food, and when he refused to give him some, he bit and drank his son's blood. For those that may not know, this will result in death. Probably. Scared villagers and Blagojevic's widow had requested that local cameral provisor Frombald, a local priest, open the grave of Blagojevic and check it for signs of a vampire. The signs would include an undecayed body and hair and nails still growing, with the old ones having fallen off. Frombald wished for the villagers to seek permissions from the authorities first. They didn't want to do so, though. They believed that they didn't have time to wait for permission to come, as they believed an entire village could be wiped out by a vampire, which is oddly believed to have happened by these villagers somewhere in the Ottoman Empire. Villagers had also threatened to leave, and a majority of them turned their fear into annoyance, so an uprising was actually feared. Frombald felt forced to accept, and along with a local priest, they had the body of Blagojevic exhumed, and guess fucking what? Surprise, surprise. Vampiro traits. Shocker. Villagers described Blagojevic as vampiri. That's kind of how I read it, which was the Serbian word for back from the dead. Frombald noticed the body was still fresh and lacked the smell of death. There was fresh hair and nails, old peeled off skin, fresh blood around the mouth, and a partially fallen off nose, along with a near perfect body condition. This absolutely astonished Frombald, and the villagers that saw this believed that the blood around his mouth was that of his victims. The villagers then proceeded to carry out an execution. Frombald claims they sharpened an arrow and proceeded to pierce the heart of the body. Then, when this happened, fresh blood came out of his ears and his mouth. They then burnt the body. I think it's weird to sit here, or well, stand here, and smile at some guy getting fucking executed. Frombald's report ends with him stating that he should not be blamed by the actions of the villagers, since they were besides themselves with fear, in quotes, as he had to do what he had to in order to calm them down. In a slightly funny but maybe unfortunate case, the authorities didn't seem to give a fuck either. However, Frombald's report was published, and it led to the first printed use of the word vampiri. This was only the start, though, of these, vampire encounters during the ye olden times of fucking Serbia. Even after all this time, Tottenham is still shit. The occupied parts of Serbia were known as a buffer zone between the empires that was known to be very epidemic heavy. The Great Plague of Vienna in 1679, which killed either a third or a quarter of its population, and the 1713 epidemic, also in Vienna, caused the Austrian military officials to be cautious of unexplained deaths. A report briefs Lieutenant Colonel Schnezer that took place in Medvedia, in which local villagers and even local militia had complained about mysterious deaths. Schneider sent in Dr. Glaser to the area to investigate the reports, and on September 12, 1731, Glaser got to Medvedia and found no evidence of an epidemic or disease. He only found malnourishment within the villagers. That must have been a fucking letdown. The villagers claimed symptoms such as fever had caused the deaths of 13 people within the past 6 weeks. They believed these deaths were caused by bloodsuckers, in other words, vampires. And like we noted before, vampires were a common belief within the Ottoman Empire. They could not convince the villagers to just, not believe this. It was to the point where they believed they would have to move if the authorities couldn't get rid of the vampires. So Glaser got 10 graves to unbox themselves in order to perform autopsies on the bodies. Most of the bodies were decomposed, but others were bloody and bloated with fresh blood running from the mouth and nose areas. Glaser now found it impossible to be able to convince the villagers that the bodies didn't become vampires, to the point where Glaser asked for permission from the authorities to execute the bodies just to calm down the people. It's kind of like what Frombald was going through. You gotta just get rid of the body, show them you're getting rid of the body. Imagine that though. Like, yeah, we can take out the bodies from their graves and perform an execution. They're vampires, by the way. Glaser sent his report to the commander in Belgrade, who decided to send in another search team. This one was led by Austro-Hungarian Johann Fluckinger. Fluckinger arrived in Medvedia on January 7th, 1732, and this guy reported 2 different outbreaks. First outbreak is known only by a report in the second outbreak, which gives a background on the previous epidemic. So Vampire Zero, essentially, was a man named Arnold Paul, a Serbian infantryman who was believed to have turned into a vampire after his death. Kind of like how they all happen. This is what started the epidemic, since it was his native village where these deaths happened. Paul had mentioned to others that he had been bitten by a vampire in a place named Gosawa, which is probably modern-day Kosovo. However, he managed to cure himself by eating soil from the vampire's grave and smearing himself with blood. I feel like that's a kink someone has. I might know who. Gotta eat what the earth gives you, am I right? Paul died in 1727 after breaking his neck falling from a wagon. Whoa. About 30 days later after his death, about 4 people complained to have been tormented by an undead Paul, only to die shortly after. Days after their deaths and a little bit over a month after Paul's death, villagers and the village's head military member had opened Paul's grave. The military member had been brought in because they had witnessed similar events, apparently. The corpse was described as undecomposed with indications of vampirism, and despite being dead, his hair and nails were growing again, with his shirt, the covering of the coffin, and the coffin itself completely bloodied. It's kind of like when she's on her period and a blood clot comes out and explodes everywhere, so now you gotta clean it up, but your mom blames you and not her because she doesn't like that you date white girls instead of Latinas. I'm gonna stop right there. The villagers had concluded that Paul was a vampire and drove a stake through his heart, to which it was said that he let out a freakish shriek as if he were still alive and bleeding. Then they cut off his head and burned the body, and since popular belief was that if you were bitten by a vampire, you would also become a vampire yourself. This in turn led to the same act being performed on the victims that died. It's also constantly mentioned that Paul had sucked the blood of cattle, and that people who must have ate from these cattle risked becoming vampires themselves. This is a really specific claim that if you see it, it's just really fucking weird. I don't know where that comes from, but it's in there. Like, seriously, there's no source for this, it's just in there. Fortunately, everything remained peaceful up until the year 1731. So the investigation for these outbreaks actually starts here. The report of the second outbreak is dated to 3 months between 1731 and 1732, in which 17 people, young and old, died. A lady named Stanoika, who was the daughter-in-law of a high duke, had reported being haunted and suffocated by a man named Milo, who died 9 weeks prior to this. It said that she went to sleep healthy, but she woke up frightened, screaming and shaking. After this, she reported a strong pain in her chest, which started to grow, and after 3 days, she died. On January 7, 1732, villagers had told Austrian military and medical officials about this incident, and after speaking with the villagers, the commission had gone to a cemetery, dug up the graves, and examined the 17 corpses. Some of the bodies found in the cemetery were found incorruptible with fresh blood still within the body, which just means not dead, basically. Potentially alive, basically. Or, for this sake, potentially a vampiro. This was seen as the case of a 60-year-old woman named Milica, who was believed to be the cause of this epidemic. This is because she had eaten the flesh of a sheep, which had been killed by a vampire. Milica then died after 3 months of sickness and had been buried 3 months prior to being exhumed. Milica was known to be skinny all her life, but when she was exhumed, her body was fat, or as some like to say, big boned. Bitch, you big because you ain't getting boned. Let's be real here. This does not apply to the girl that thinks she's big, but I think is beautiful. You are not big. You are absolutely gorgeous. They found fresh blood in the chest cavity she had, as well as fresh intestines. 10 days after her burial, Stonoiko had been found with a live-like face. She had a blue bruise on her finger, under her right ear, and fresh blood flowed from her nose after she was taken out of the grave. After this, the corrupted bodies were buried again, and the others were decapitated and burned by the locals. At this point, it's a community tradition. This report has been roughly translated multiple times, and very little of these translations have been in English. Because of this, and also because it's a fucking old-ass case, names, dates, and victim numbers tend to fluctuate. Fluckinger's report, called Seen and Found, caused a lot of controversy and debate within religious, scholar, and court circles as well. The report was reprinted in multiple newspapers and journals around Europe, with Dr. Glaser having his report published in Nuremberg. Charles Alexander and King Frederick Wilhelm I of Prussia had actually discussed the Seen and Found report. This is because King Wilhelm wanted to know, just, hey, are they real, or what? On March 11, 1732, the conclusion was that the observed phenomena could be explained by well-known natural processes of decomposing bodies. In the report named Dissertations, Augustin Calmet, a Vatican scholar, had come to the conclusion that advancements in science at the time, physicians knew that those who died without disease or by sudden death can be appearing fluid for a certain period of time after they die. This is because slow and imperceptible circulation allows for growth of hair and nails. Modern-day scientists also back this up. Since it was stated that it wasn't uncommon for corpses to be buried face down, this would result in blood flowing to the face. Doctors thought dangerous corpses would be seen as infectious, so they dumped them out quicker. Sometimes, this would result in someone who's not quite dead to get buried. I genuinely can't imagine that, like, ugh, this guy looks gross. He's getting buried, right? But he's still fucking alive. Vampires would be native to the Eastern European region, so it's believed that colder environments allowed for temporary preservation of the dead. Calmet speculated that once a cold corpse would be laid into a room with heat or exposed to the sun, the body would then revive itself and perform its functions that were stopped by the cold. Nosferatu fucking lied to me. Them bitches are supposed to be afraid of the sun. What is this? This feels like vampire-phobic propaganda that's supposed to trick you into killing them. Calmet also rejected the Orthodox Christian idea of excommunication resulting in undecomposing bodies. Given the relations between the Greeks and the Latins, this didn't make sense to Calmet. This would just mean that every other body out there would be undecayed too. And don't force your beliefs into facts, fuckface, is what he was saying. In order to establish what causes the appearance of a vampire, Calmet looked into the behaviors attributed to them. The conclusion was that those within Hungary, Poland, and Moravia believed them to rise from the grave and suck on the blood of the living. Over time, Calmet's reports about vampires would then be tied to the Slavic strigoi, which behaves almost identically. Only difference is that the strigoi are connected to witchcraft instead. So Calmet's report, on top of the Arnold Powell case, would end up creating the traditional vampires that we know now. An undead guy would rise from the dead and suck on the blood of the living. And then I think from there, we just kind of got Dracula. And then I guess Dracula somehow led to like Twilight. You know, think about it, that kind of makes sense. Dracula led to Twilight. I'm gonna stand on that. I'm standing on business on that. Surprisingly, Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Voltaire, right, dudes you learned about in high school once and then never heard about them again, had made comments about Calmet's research on vampires. Rousseau would side with Calmet, while Voltaire would actually be a little bitch about it. Like, unironically, he just came off like he hated anyone who played with the idea of a vampire potentially existing. He'd be like that Lex Luthor meme. Voltaire's actual statements were that he outright rejected the idea of vampirism, calling it, and I quote, an effect of the prepossession and ignorance of the people from those countries. Basically, he said they were stupid for living in buttfuck Europe. Voltaire believed that science should always dismiss superstition without consideration, and anything in favor of these wild beliefs should be rejected. As a result of reporting on vampires heavily, Voltaire believed Comet was helping spread superstition. The plot twist is that they were both from Western Europe. And can you guess who Western Europe sided with at the time? Yeah, ding ding fucking Comet. No, what's really funny is I made this video last year, but I had to redo it because the other editing software I used completely fucked the recording I had. And when I got my new computer, my editing software was just doing this weird shit, like zooming in the camera too much and cutting out the first few seconds of every cut. It was tiring, and the vampire video was the most affected by this. Another funny thing, though, is that I made the Paranormal Oddities iceberg about 2 years ago by now, and I still had the notes. And the outline for the Serbia vampire stuff is in there. Einstein once famously said, "Balls so hard, motherfuckers trying to find me." And he also said, energy can't be destroyed once it's been created. I had them for a while, and, for a while I had wanted to make a video on this exact topic because it sounded cool as fuck. And now that I have made the top video, I guess, it's a cool random thing that I can just tell people while, chatting with me, I guess. It's a cool thing to just randomly say to your friend that's high, but he's just kind of looking at you like, what the fuck, bro? It's funny, like I say that, I've always been told I come off like I do weed, and sometimes it's because of the shit I tend to say. Like, I'd hit a blunt and just be like, you ever hear about that vampire attack in Serbia? I've never even smoked weed, like, I'm just fucking weird. I'm the weird kid my parents had, that's really it. Usually, to me, when I think of vampires, I think of Twilight. Like, genuinely. Like, think about it. If you know at least one woman, she's in a Twilight. 95% chance she's in a Twilight. So, if you think about it, it's not that far-fetched to think of Twilight immediately when you hear vampire. Like, I don't know. When it comes to undead paranormal entity, I prefer a zombie or an actual ghost. I never really think vampires. So, that's kind of why I came to do this. Because I don't really talk about them. I don't really know anything about them. Last year I watched Abigail, and bro, I fuck with that movie heavy. I like that movie a lot. I don't know if it's like the best movie out there, but like, I fucking liked it, right? Frank was my guy, bro. I can't believe he fucking died. Like, I can't believe that shit. So, I'm at the end of the video. Let me just get through this shit. And like, I'll give you horror movies I actually do like. Late Night with the Devil. That's my favorite horror movie, actually. Zombieland. The original Hellraiser, only because I find it so unintentionally funny. And that's it. And no, I have never seen Halloween, Scream, That Rhymes, Terrifier, fucking Freddy Krueger, Jason, whoever the fuck else is there. I don't give a fuck. I really don't give a fuck. I like creepy, spooky things, but I just don't engage with it a lot. Because I guess movies, I don't like movies, bro. Like, I'll be honest. I'll watch it if someone's watching with me. But like, me, myself, I'm just not gonna fucking do it. I can lock into like 3 hours of wrestling non-stop. Lock the fuck in. But you tell me to watch something like The Godfather? Fuck no. Get the fuck out of here, bro. Who do you think I am? I'm gonna watch John Cena vs. RVD instead. Fuck you. Okay, random ramble aside. Yeah, that's really it. That's the story of the Serbian vampire plague. It just ends there. It's old case. There's nothing about it. Nothing we can do about it. No way someone can just re-dig this up and find something new. Anyways, this should be the first. No, I don't think it's the first. It should be one of the first or second video of the Halloween stuff I'm doing this year. Hopefully I have something out for every week. If I don't, whoops. I hope you enjoy this one. I hope you enjoyed the previous one and everything that's come before the previous one. With all that being said, bye.
Fuck again. I wanna be a man, but I love all the sin and the cigarette ash, black lips. I wanna be a saint, but I love all the darkness. Lights just burn.